So the first time I've heard this question, this hypothetical scenario be like thrown out there was back when I was in like high school, which was a while ago because I graduated high school back in 2014. So it's this question, this hypothetical scenario that people ask you about, it's been around for many years, but it seemed to gain even more virality over the past like I don't know, more or less 3 years or whatever. And obviously, if you read the title, the question was if you could choose between $500,000 or dinner with Jay-Z, which one would you choose? Now, to me, the answer has always been obvious. Take the $500,000 and bet on yourself. But there's a massive number of people who wouldn't take the money, and instead they feel as though they should sit down with dinner for Jay-Z. And to this day, it's always amused me that people think that's a good idea. But it's funny that Jay-Z recently sat down in an interview where he gave his thoughts on this scenario and what he would do in that situation.
Love to hear what you think about this. If you had a choice between getting paid $500,000 in cash or lunch with Jay-Z,
Yeah,
which would you choose?
you gotta take the money. What are you gonna want? I'm gonna say.
Now, that might have played low, I'm not sure, but in case you didn't hear that, that was Jay-Z himself responding responding to that question by saying you got to take the money. He didn't say maybe not. No, he specifically said you got to take the money. His exact words were, "What am I going to tell you?" And that's the point many people like myself have been making.
Yeah, I mean everything that I'm gonna
No,
say.
no,
Everything.
only because people say, of course you take lunch with Jay-Z because the wisdom that you would get from him would be so beneficial to you. It would only be a matter. You would take the money.
Yeah, because you got all that in the music for $10.99. That's a bad deal. I wouldn't tell you to cut a bad deal. Like,
Now, again, that's him further explaining why he wouldn't take the offer for dinner, because in his own words, it's clearly a bad deal. And he is right. He has dropped gems in his music. Now, he's also put out conflicting messages and negative themes in his music too. But again, he's also dropped gems in his music. Like he's dropped more than enough in the songs to where you get a general idea of what type of advice he would give you. But still, a lot of people, they would rather choose dinner with Jay-Z. And I think a big part of it is a lot of people are trying too hard to come off as like deep or smart, or, they're trying to zig in a scenario where you should obviously zag. So it's almost kind of sad. I know that this isn't fully related to music, but to me it still is, because obviously Jay-Z is a musician, and it's a fascinating topic to me because it speaks to a bigger theme, which is the theme that most people don't really believe in themselves. But I'm going to come back to that. But first, I just want to talk about what is so ridiculous about this question to me, or this hypothetical scenario. Number one, if you go on dinner with Jay-Z, let's say you're one of the people that choose the dinner with Jay-Z and you would rather go on the dinner, right? There are many major flaws or many major issues that could come about with you choosing dinner instead of the money. One major issue is you're assuming that you'll get along with him. There is no guarantee of that. A lot of people, they look at these celebrities as if they're gods, as if they're, something bigger than life, when at the end of the day, Jay-Z is still just a person. And just like the people at your job, just like the people in your family, just like the people in your neighborhood, just like the people wherever, there's no guarantee that they're gonna like you. And there's no guarantee that Jay-Z's gonna like you. So if for one reason or another, Jay-Z just doesn't like you and you just rub him the wrong way or whatever, or who knows, maybe Jay-Z rubbed you the wrong way and you don't like him, whatever, who cares? If for whatever reason you guys don't get along, what makes you think that if y'all sit down at this dinner that he's gonna bother to share millions of dollars worth of information and millions of dollars worth of advice to you? It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense why you would think that Jay-Z, if he didn't like you, why you would think that he's gonna bother trying to help you to that extent. Also, another issue that comes up with this is, again, you got to remember that Jay-Z is still human. I got to keep emphasizing that in this video because, again, it can't be understated that Jay-Z is human. So guess what? If he's doing business deals all day and, doing all this, running all these companies and doing all this stuff, there's a strong chance that he's not going to want to do that 24 hours. There's a strong chance that if y'all sit down at dinner, he may just simply want to just eat some food and chill. He may want to get his mind off of things. He may want to actually say, hey, you know what? I just want to talk about my favorite sports team, right? He may just be like, hey, man, did you see that football game? Did you see that basketball game? Did you see this? Did you see that? He may look at you as if you're just one of his you're just one of his buddies that wants to talk about, simple lighthearted stuff that isn't tied to money. And if he looks at you that way and puts you in that box, again, that's another scenario where he's unlikely to want to sit down in the middle of dinner and explain to you for hours on how you could be rich like him. Another issue I have with this is, again, it speaks to the bigger issue with a lot of people, which is I do believe that a lot of people don't believe in themselves. Like, there's a lot of people that, regardless of how confident they try to come off, regardless of how great their body language is, or regardless of how good they are with talking to people or whatever, whatever you want to call it, riz, swag, drip, whatever, regardless of all of that, a lot of people, even ones that externally come off as confident, a lot of people in the moment of truth, when it's time to put it all on the line and bet on themselves, most people aren't willing to do it. Most people, they can't do it, which is why most people, well, not most, but that's why a lot of people would choose to have Jay-Z sit with them for dinner, because again, they're assuming he's gonna hold their hand and walk them through the process, basically kind of play the role of like training wheels on a bicycle, as if he's gonna be like that major assistance to them to help them achieve whatever great thing they're trying to achieve to get to his level. And again, in many cases, I believe it shows that they really don't believe in themselves. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with somebody wanting a mentor or somebody wanting, that sort of guidance. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. And there are some people who are lucky enough to get that. But guess what? Most people don't have that. So unfortunately, for most people to get to a great level, to get to a certain level where they're going to do something great, accomplish something great, and be bigger than or be greater than the people that they knew their whole lives as far as achievements, you're probably just going to have to figure it out on your own. You're probably just going to, just have to rely on whatever information you can gather from, books and life experience and just call it a day. And even though that's not what most people want to hear, you'll probably learn better that way anyway. That's why, to me, it's always made sense to just go with the 500,000. Because if I just go with the 500,000, I can figure it out myself and build myself up to the point where the Jay-Z's of the world will want to sit down to have dinner with me. Not saying literally Jay-Z, but I'm just saying people at that level will want to reach out to me. I would rather build myself up to the point where they come to me instead of me having to constantly go to them. Because again, and we all know this, it's not fun when you constantly have to be the one out here chasing and trying to, make people want to be around you, compared to when people are just coming to you. And ideally, I want to be in a position of power where I really don't have to hope that Jay-Z gives me good advice over dinner. Like, I'd rather just be in a powerful enough position where the Jay-Z's of the world, they're trying to contact me. I don't need to contact them. And again, some people would argue that it's not a good option to take the money because you might lose it, and it's better to take the dinner with Jay-Z because the wisdom he'll give you will be worth more than a 500,000. Again, that's not necessarily the case. To me, it's still better to take the money, because even if you lose the money, even if, let's say you lose the money, you get the money, you bet on yourself, you had a plan, and something went wrong and it fell apart. Even if you lose the money, you still will have a stronger chance of learning more from losing that money than from Jay-Z. Than from sitting down at dinner with Jay-Z, because you'll actually have those failures to learn from in your specific life situation to realize, hey, it's better if I do this instead of that. It's better if I do this instead of that. And then also, if you lose it, the fact that you at least got it one time, it can still build up a strong enough fire in you to make you feel as though you can get it back again. You're going to want to get back to that level again because you saw what the other side was like. Even if it was briefly, you saw what the other side was like with this 500,000, with this great opportunity in front of you. And you made some bad choices, or you might have made some good choices, but it just still didn't work out. Because that's another thing, right? Something that Jay-Z might not even tell you is sometimes you can plan everything out right, and one or two mistakes or one or two miscalculations can just destroy everything. You can make 10 amazing decisions, and one or two bad ones or one or two miscalculated decisions that backfire could put you in a position where it wiped out all that money you just made. Stuff like that happens. But at least you getting it the first time would make you confident enough to believe that, hey, one way or another, I could get it again. One way or another, I have to get it again, because I saw what it was like when I had it, and this was easier, that was easier, this was easier, that was easier. Again, these are things that Jay-Z probably wouldn't tell you if you sat down and dinner with him. Another thing that was funny was when kind of funny to me was during this interview where Jay-Z literally said, hey, I already told you all that I need to tell you in the music. You just gotta listen. Because again, most people don't listen to lyrics. So it's definitely funny that a lot of people are out here saying they would rather have dinner with Jay, when if you actually listen to the lyrics that he has in the music, according to him himself, he gave you all the info you needed if you just sit down and listen. Something that kind of annoys me, and I'm sure it might annoy you too, but it's kind of annoying when people ask a question that was already answered in the material, because again, it just lets me know, okay, this person was too lazy to bother listening. They was too lazy to bother looking at what I already sent them. Like he already gave you the blueprint. Like, for example, I just recently finished a class, and right before the class was finished, one of our last projects, it was like a group project. One of the guys in the group that I was in, he was asking, hey, can you guys send this and that and this and that into because we're all sharing like one repository that we're like sending the info to present. But so he's like asking like, hey, can you guys send this or that? And it's annoying me because I'm like, that lets me know that this lazy person didn't even bother to look at what was already there. Because you're asking me to send you something that already was sent. You didn't check. It's the same thing with with Jay-Z and the point that he's trying to make with his music. It's like, I already gave you the blueprint. All you got to do is listen and then just apply the information. Now, does that mean everything Jay-Z's ever said has been good advice? No. But hey, guess what? He's made good points. He's dropped some gems. Just use some discernment and, pick and choose the parts of his messages that you feel are the most relevant to you and the most easily to, or I'll say it like this, the part that's most relevant to you and the part that can translate the best to today's current time, because this is the last and probably the most important point I want to make. And this ties back to the music. For all the people, especially musicians or even, just entrepreneurs in general, who think that it would be better to sit down with Jay-Z instead of take the money. Another thing you got to realize is another reason you got to realize dinner with Jay-Z is not a good idea. Another reason that dinner with Jay-Z wouldn't be a good idea is Jay-Z lacks context of what it's like for any aspiring artist or entrepreneur right now. He lacks total context. Jay-Z was born like back in the 60s. Jay-Z is like an early generation X person. Jay-Z is in his mid 50s. Like Jay-Z is in his mid 50s. If you are somebody who's like young or relatively young, trying to make it, whether it's in music or just, just life, entrepreneurship, or whatever, just in life, trying to ask Jay-Z for help isn't the best idea. Trying to sit down with him for dinner isn't the best idea, because Jay-Z doesn't even really know how to handle this era. What is Jay-Z doing on TikTok? What Jay-Z ain't on TikTok. Jay-Z ain't on any of these platforms. And part of it, of course, is because he's trying to, maintain a certain like air of like mystery, you know what I mean? Like a certain mystique about him, right? That's part of it. But another part is, in reality, Jay-Z don't know what the hell to do on these platforms. He don't know what to do. He gonna be too busy trying to look cool. He ain't gonna be able to tell you how you can succeed on TikTok, because he never did it. He succeeded back 30 plus years ago when they were out here trying to make connections with random DJs and bribe them into playing his songs on the radio, going from one CD store to the other with crates of CDs, trying to get them to put them on the shelf and sell them. He's from that era. He can't relate to what it's like now trying to make it in music. He doesn't know. He doesn't. And not only does he not know, again, in my opinion, he doesn't really know how to handle himself sometimes. Like, and I don't mean he does anything too crazy, but sometimes it's just like he doesn't understand the culture as much as he doesn't understand the internet culture. I'm not talking about hip hop, but just the internet culture enough to understand how to handle certain situations, in my opinion. And I believe the best example of that is when you look at Jay-Z's interview with Nardwuar. He did an interview with Nardwuar about, I think it was like more or less 10 years ago. He did an interview with Nardwuar. And obviously, I'm sure most people here have heard of Nardwuar, but for the people that haven't, Nardwuar is a legendary like interviewer. He's been interviewing people from like, I don't know, since like the 80s. Like it's been like 30, 40 years or whatever. But Nardwuar has adopted really well in the internet era. And, he's become more viral than ever over the past decade. But typically Nardwuar interviews, they're kind of goofy. He dresses with a lot of colors and stuff. Like the interview's not meant to be taken too seriously. He does ask serious questions, and he'll randomly just, give people gifts that make people nervous and wonder, how did he find out this like very little, this very unknown detail about him. But again, in general, his interviews are not meant to be like too serious. Like, but as you're watching, I remember watching the interview with Nardwuar, and it's like Jay-Z was like trying so hard to come off as cool in that interview, and it kind of threw me off, because I'm like, bro, just relax. Like he just came off kind of stiff. Like pause. Like he just came off like just stiff in the interview, and it's like, man, just relax, man. Like it ain't like, what are you doing? Like, but it's little things like that where I'm like, it gives me the impression that imagine Jay-Z trying to figure out how to get his song to go viral for the first time in this current era. He wouldn't know what to do, especially as an independent artist. Yeah, he was indie back in like, early 90s. And he did just fine then. That's cool, but it's a different era now. And in this era, I don't think it's a guarantee that Jay-Z would just know what to do. There's no guarantee of that. Like when Jay-Z was first trying to come up, yeah, there was competition, but not competition like there is now. Like back in the day, it's like there was competition, but at the end of the day, him and his people, okay, they're driving from one location to the next, to different, one city to the next, doing small shows and, events, and again, trying to get different CD stores in different areas to play their songs and stuff like that. That's cool, but that can't compare to the amount of competition that there is right now. It can't even compare. It literally can't even compare to the amount of competition that is out there right now. It can't compare. Just when you talk about music alone, like there are millions of songs, thanks to how easily accessible the internet is and how easy it is to make music now, or how easy it is to make and release music, whether it's good or not. The competition is off the charts right now. There's millions of songs coming out every day. There are countless artists in every genre going viral and then disappearing every day. And that's just when you talk about music. When you talk about just content in general, and the fact that you got all these streaming apps like Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and each of these streaming platforms, they got 1,000 different original shows and 1,000 different movies and 1,000 seasons of those original shows and 1,000 reboots of every popular TV show that came out in 1992 or whatever. Like, the competition, not just for music, but just for content in general, is off the charts compared to what it was back when Jay-Z first came out. The average human attention span has dropped dramatically in the past several decades. So it is 10 times more effort to try to get any traction with your music now compared to when Jay-Z was doing his thing. And I'm not saying Jay-Z had it easy, but I'm just saying part of the reason Dinner with Jay-Z would be useless for a lot of people is because he doesn't really understand what you're going through right now. Because he made it as an aspiring artist and succeeded, but he did so 30 plus years ago in a completely different environment. There's not a whole lot of advice he could give you on how to be a 27-year-old and make it in music in 2023 when he's not 27 in 2023. He's like 50 something. He was 27 back in like 1996. He was 27 back when I was first born. So what advice could he possibly give someone like me or you if we sat down and dinner with him for dinner? Probably not much. And that goes into another point I wanted to make as well, that Jay-Z, even for him to possibly give you good advice, he would have to know you specifically and your specific situation, and he would have to know all the nuances of your situation and all the random details about your life and stuff. Like, he would have to really get to know you, which would take hours on top of more hours on top of more hours. You just trying to sit down with him for dinner. You think he trying to have dinner with you for 26 hours straight while you explain your whole life to him just so he can kind of give you good advice? That would be a waste of time. But ultimately, I just think it was very funny that Jay-Z himself said that, trying to pick dinner with him instead of the money is it's a terrible deal, because it is. Not only is it a terrible deal for you, But also, it's a bad deal for Jay-Z because there's a good chance that he could give you some good advice and you still not gonna listen. A lot of people hear what they want to hear. You could give them solid advice that possibly could have worked and they still won't do it. And sometimes they'll twist it as if you didn't already give them great advice, and and when in reality they just didn't listen. Like, I'll give an example. Like, a couple years ago, I was on a job. There was a coworker I had. He was like he was an older dude. He was like in his like 40s or whatever. But I was I've been studying and following cryptocurrency since like early 2019. Before all like the meme coin stuff happened, and before Wall Street bets and all that stuff kind of made crypto and stocks and stuff like kind of mainstream. I've been following this stuff for a while. So, back in like right before, not too close before, but like like a few months before like the meme coin mania happened and stuff, I was telling this coworker, because he was talking as if he was starting to get interested in crypto. I was trying to give him some advice. I said, hey, listen, man, if you want to get into that stuff, and if you want to make the type of money that you're clearly trying to make, focusing on the big coins, focusing on the massive coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum, is a waste of time, because you don't have the money to be able to really do anything, to really be able to make the type of profits that you want to make. Because see, he's like a lot of people. They have what I call a casino mentality, where they want to walk in with $1 and they want to walk out a millionaire. And it's just like, by talking to him, I already knew that was the case. And so I gave him good advice. I literally told him, I'm like, listen, man, you trying to go in and buy Bitcoin and Ethereum when you don't even have, and all you guys is like $1,000 more or less. That's a waste of time. You're not going to make a life-changing money. You might make some profits in a couple of years or whatever, or maybe in a few months or whatever, but you're not going to make that life-changing money that you're literally telling me that you want to make. If you want to make that, you're going to be better off, putting your money up on some of these altcoins that have smaller market caps, that are still flying under the radar right now, that have not only a lower threshold for how much coins you could accumulate because the price of them is so low right now, but also have a lower threshold for how much profit you can make if the price goes up just a little bit. He didn't listen. And I specifically remember I recommended 5 coins to him. I said, listen, I'm not, because I've been studying it for several years, and I've heard of, I've looked into and researched, hundreds of coins, essentially dozens, well, I don't know about hundreds, but definitely dozens, possibly hundreds at this point. But I remember specifically telling him to go get 5. There was 5 I recommended. I said, listen, XRP, Cardano, Stellar, Theta, Chainlink. He did not listen. Now, shortly after me telling him that, because I told him that multiple times at the time, shortly after, a few weeks to months after that, one of our other coworkers started to make a whole lot of money off of like Dogecoin and Shiba, because now, a few months later, this is now when the whole like meme coin craze started happening, and then also the Wall Street bet stuff happened with with GameStop and all that. So now he was really interested, right? And again, he didn't want to listen to what I was recommending him. He instead wanted to go and buy Bitcoin and Ethereum and then Dogecoin, when I specifically told him, hey, don't waste your time on those. I even told him don't waste his time on Doge, not because Doge was expensive, but because I said, listen, man, that whole Doge situation is kind of a unicorn situation. It's unlikely that you'll be able to cash in now when it's this mainstream. You're probably just better off going to those altcoins I told you about. He still ain't do it, y'all. He still ain't do it. And then he want to reach back out to me a few weeks later and said, yeah, man, I bought the coins just like you said. I bought the Bitcoin and Ethereum and Dogecoin just like you said. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, I specifically told this dummy not to buy those coins. And I clearly explained why I believe, based on his specific situation, buying those coins would be a waste of time, and he would be better off trying to invest in those other coins I mentioned. He didn't want to do it. And the irony of that is, those coins that I told him to buy, especially at the time I told him to buy it, if he would have listened, he would have made a bunch of money. Especially Theta. Because at the time when I told him about Theta, Theta was only like 8 cents. And that same year, Theta went up to like $14. If he had just listened, he would have either changed his life with how much money he would have made, or at the very least, he would have at least made, a few thousand and, just been happy. But again, he didn't want to listen. I had to go on this tangent just to make the point that a lot of times there's people out here who don't listen. There's people out here that hear what they want to hear. In that story I just told you, the coworker, he didn't want to listen to me. He heard what he wanted to hear. And so even though I specifically told him, don't get into Bitcoin and Ethereum, look into these altcoins and, go from there. And then later on, you'll figure it out after, but still don't focus on those major coins. He didn't want to hear. He heard the opposite. He heard, go get those major coins. And he didn't make much money from it, obviously, because he ain't listen to me. And I'm not saying I know everything, but that was a scenario where I was more knowledgeable on that subject than he was. And he didn't want to listen to me. He wanted to listen to the coworker we had who was bragging about how much money he allegedly made, instead of listening to me. And I'm actually the person who had sound knowledge and understanding of a lot of this stuff. Like the coworker that allegedly made all that money off Dogecoin, he didn't even know what year Bitcoin came out. He did something that simple, something that's so easy to look up and should be almost common sense to remember the year. You don't even have to remember the exact day, but just the year that Bitcoin came to be. He didn't even know that. But you're taking his advice over mine. You listening to him over me. And I actually had experience in this environment. So again, if you listen this long, I'm very thankful that you did. But I went on that tangent just to make the point that even if some people who say they want dinner with Jay-Z had dinner with Jay-Z, there's no guarantee that you're going to actually sit down and properly digest his advice and actually do what he advised you to do. There's a whole lot of y'all that will sit down with him, do the exact opposite of what he told you to do, and then be mad at him that it didn't work out. But again, that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, if you got an option to take $500,000 or have dinner with Jay-Z, choose the money. And I'm not saying money is everything, but what I'm saying is, if you really believe in yourself, you should definitely prioritize betting on yourself and putting all the chips in on yourself compared to trying to bet on Jay-Z. Because that's essentially what you're trying to do. The people that say they would still rather have dinner with Jay-Z, they're essentially saying they don't believe in themselves and they want Jay-Z to somehow fix their life and make them rich. Real confidence shouldn't be about body language or the tone of your voice or how cool you are or all this stupid stuff that the general public, like that the mainstream, the general population wants to hype up. All that stuff is stupid. The real test of confidence is, are you willing to take that leap of faith on yourself? Whether you succeed or fail, are you at least willing to take that leap of faith on yourself? And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who won't. But that's all I got to say. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. And let me know, would you still choose dinner with Jay-Z, or are you like me and you would rather just take the money and figure it out on your own?